This morning in AM Philadelphia, we are going to try to do our very best to help you understand that thing that you are sitting there watching right now. Most of us have had television in one aspect or another in our lives for the better part of the last 20 or 25 years. But what kind of an impact does it really have on our families, on our minds, on the minds of our children? Good question. That's why we're pleased to introduce a man who's an expert on it. He is Dr. Joshua Meyrowitz. He is the professor of communication at the University of New Hampshire. He's also written a book about this whole thing of television, the media, what it's done to all of us, called No Sense of Place. No sense of place means what?
Well, it means that because of television, for the first time in human civilization, what we see and experience with our own eyes has nothing to do with where we are, the places that we're in. Now that may sound kind of abstract, but there are at least three very concrete effects that has on us.
Okay.
It changes the relation between children and adults. It changes the relationship between men and women. And it changes our relationship to our politicians and other authorities and leaders.
Let me start with the last one first.
Okay, sure.
Then are you saying that it's no small accident that the President of the United States is one who, prior to his political career, distinguished himself as an actor?
Oh, it's no coincidence at all. In fact, when Eisenhower was president, he hired an actor to help him, to coach him on how to behave on TV. And many people were outraged by this, that a genuine war hero would need an actor to teach him how to behave for the public. But today I think we've become much more sophisticated on this. We realize that a person can't simply be the president, that he has to perform the role of president, and he has to perform it in that very intimate medium of television. And so now the actor is not just an advisor, the actor is the president, and he hires political strategists to help him be president.
Is there a danger in that, though? When we've got consultants coming in telling a presidential candidate what kind of makeup to use, how to wear his hair, as opposed to what position to take, isn't there something inherently wrong with that?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think that what has actually happened is not a change in the staging of politics. I think politics was always, in a sense, staged and people performed for us. But the advice used to be much more secret. The advisors were invisible. The staging was invisible. And so we accepted the onstage performance as the real reality. Now what's happened is we see so much. The stage has been opened up that we see kind of a side stage view. We see our presidents and our other politicians move from the backstage to the onstage. We see their advisors. We know about their makeup and their hair dye, and that their speeches are written by other people. So that while all of us get advice on how to behave from our spouses and our hairdressers and our people who sell us clothes, those things tend to be secret. Now our politicians are so exposed to us that we even see how they prepare to behave for us, and it kind of demystifies them. We all have the kind of position of a roadie, that is the person who goes on the road with any performer. We see them in the backstage and the onstage. We still appreciate a good performance, as does a roadie, but we're not as taken in by it as we used to be.
I heard a teacher, a grade school teacher, recently say that she felt that the biggest challenge she faced as a teacher was that she had to entertain them, that the kids were so used to television that she felt like she was up there and she was doing a tap dance. And that if she didn't come up with jokes, or if she didn't come up with a game, or if she didn't come up with something to hold their interest, real quick, they were bored. They were mentally tuned out.
Right.
Has television done that?
Oh, television has changed children's expectations of everything, in that we used to be able to isolate children from almost everything in the adult world. We could keep children in a protected and isolated physical place, the home, and we could tell them whatever we wanted to about adult life and the adult world, and they would have to accept what we gave them. Now we can still keep children in a protected physical place, the home, but TV takes our kids across the globe before we as parents even give them permission to cross the street, and they see so much and such visual packaging and fast and quick and images that they expect a high density of information. Then they go to school, and the school system is based on the assumption that you parcel out information. You don't tell first graders about the fact that the government doesn't always work and that adults break down. You tell them instead about George Washington never telling a lie and cutting down the cherry tree.
I can tell you right now, Thundar the Magnificent is a lot more interesting than the kindergarten teacher I had, I want to tell you. But there's a kind of a tragedy with that. What happens when our children sit there and they look at kids with bloated bellies in Ethiopia, and we tell them those are starving children and we need to help them?
Right.
Do they relate to the fact that those are real kids, or is that Does that fall into the same category as the Transformers or Daffy Duck or the Gummy Bears? Does it have an air of unreality to it?
Well, I have a 3-year-old, and when she saw those children, she reacted to them as if they were real children. She did. Crying, and she was very upset. She asked why they were crying, and she also, if she sees any violence in South Africa, gets very upset about it and why they're hitting those people. We tried to tell her it was just a parade and, you know, keep that old veil of secrecy, but it didn't seem to work. She's a little too sharp. And I think that she does already sense the difference between the dramas and the reality. And she, like all of us now, in a sense, is more concerned about things happening in other places and other parts of the world, thousands of miles away from us, than she is aware of, and therefore concerned about, things that are happening down the block.
Sure.
And
so in other words, she may, as a child of television, literally, she may be more aware of or more exposed to what's going on in Beirut than what's going on at the end of her own block.
That's true. That's another reason we don't have a sense of place, that our sense of community tied to the people who actually live around us is no longer there. We now tied into an informational community that's linked through TV and radio and television.
I've got a last question for you on the children, and then I want to talk about what this whole thing has done as far as sex roles go. Is it any accident that in this last 20 years where there's been a television explosion, there has also been a dramatic increase in the instances of teenage suicide? We recently did a program on suicide of young people under 10 years old. Over the last 20 years, that has increased by 200%. 200%. Is television the culprit there? Only in the sense that they see the world warts and all. They see every night, in one way or another, nuclear war is brought up as a possibility. Every night in your living room you can see mankind's fight against mankind and basically the bad news. Does that burn them out? Are they through with life by 10?
Well, I don't think it burns out all our 10-year-olds. What it does is it includes 10-year-olds and 5-year-olds and people of all ages and sexes and different statuses in the society in the same discussion. So that even as we talk about this right now, there are young children now hearing about this possibility of suicide. And that used to not be the case.
So in other words, talking about it, it may be a danger in and of itself.
Right, that's the paradox on TV. We could discuss right now about what to tell or not tell our children, because we have this image in our minds of these advice books for parents. But the difference between an advice book and a TV show is the advice book is written by and for adults and can't be read by the kid. While we could talk about those same secrets on TV, and there'd be thousands of kids listening in, hearing about the very secrets we were talking about keeping from them, and also learning about what I call the secret of secrecy, the biggest secret of all, that adults try to keep secrets from kids.
Something to think about. And I'm going to take your suggestion. We're going to get off the topic, but there's a lot more to talk about. How television has affected the way we think of ourselves sexually. So don't go away as AM Philadelphia continues. Dr. Joshua Meyrowitz is with us this morning. We're talking about television and its impact on culture. Okay, I've certainly picked your brain about a lot of things. Let me keep going. You say the tube has made, in general, men more feminine, women more masculine. What do you mean?
Well, we used to think that there were two completely different social worlds. We used to think there was this public male realm of rational accomplishments and brutal competitions, and there was this private female sphere of home and intuition and emotion and child rearing, and men and women weren't supposed to know about the other person's sphere. And television tends to blur those differences, even though the content is often very sexist, because in television close-ups, we now see the private and emotional side of public figures and events. We see tears welling up in the eyes of our president. We experience a technical failure in the space program, a very male topic, in terms of the heart-wrenching mourning that we felt for a teacher whom we loved. And television...
What do you think about it? Let me stop here for a second. I still don't know what to think about that. On the one hand, I felt like I was invading on a very, very private moment of those two people as they watched their daughter die. On the other hand, the part of me that also will look when you're going by a traffic accident felt satisfied. Did we belong there? Was that a moment that should not have been on the air?
It's a hard question. The whole event was a media event that NASA wanted to get us involved in the space funding and space program by focusing our attention on a single person, someone like you and me. And they sort of sent Krista up into an orbit of celebrity before they sent her up in the space shuttle. And I think, unfortunately, the momentum that was built up and this media coverage probably had something to do with them rushing to get the launch off while the media were all still down there. It's a tricky question. The whole question is probably goes back even before that. Should this have been the publicity focus of this space launch in terms of this teacher, this idea of the teacher in space? I think once television built up this relationship between us and Krista, once we sensed that we knew her, that we cared about her, that it felt obligated to play the major role in the morning and to cover it, and I think that's what we saw there.
Television plays games with sex.
Yeah.
We titillate, we whet your appetite, but we don't show it.
Yeah.
Three's Company, that whole, and I'll use the term that everybody uses, TNA. If you do a good TNA show, you still can get ratings.
Yeah.
What does that do to us sexually? Some people would say we've got 1 million teenage pregnancies a year. Thank you, Mr. Television.
Well, it certainly, again, involves kids in the issues of sexuality. We used to think of childhood as a time of innocence and isolation. We wouldn't tell kids about sex and abortion and drugs, and now kids see all these things. Whatever is on TV is as accessible to children as it is to adults. So you have that is kind of scary.
But has it encouraged promiscuity, or has it encouraged sexual irresponsibility? And not only on the part of kids, but on the part of adults, too.
I think there's something very sensual about television. We're on TV, we don't respond as much to ideas and to abstractions. We respond in a kind of sensual way, even to the President of the United States. It used to be that we would use one set of rules for dealing with people personally. You wouldn't ask somebody for a resume before going out with them. But not until recently, we didn't vote for a president because of the twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
So we've seen a kind of blurring of those things. We apply private norms now in public, and often public norms in private, where a dispute between a husband and wife becomes an issue of sex discrimination. You have this kind of strange blurring of public and private roles.
But don't you have to give a gold medal to television for bringing the civil rights movement into America's living rooms, bringing the feminist movement into America's living rooms?
You know that, but exposing women to all those places that men used to tell them they shouldn't know anything about, they shouldn't think about, they shouldn't want to participate in. And the same thing happened with blacks. Television showed blacks all the places they were being excluded from. There's nothing more frustrating than being shown daily activities and adventures and excitement that's reserved for someone else of another sex or another race.
It's been my fervent desire for a long time to go to Fantasy Island. Seriously,
you may be there already.
Thank you. And I might not even know it. Dr. Joshua Meyrowitz is the author of No Sense of Place. Our guest this morning. Boy, thank you for some very interesting attitudes about television. Don't go away. As AM Philadelphia continues.